Welcome to the Human Meme Podcast. I'm David Bowles, and today we are going to have a conversation about time and its temporal meaning. What the light carries. On writing to the future. The light that touches your face right now left the sun 8 minutes ago. That is not a metaphor. It is a measurement. 150 million kilometers of empty space, crossed at 299,792 kilometers per second, and still, the transit takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds. The warmth you feel on your skin is not the sun as it is. It is the sun as it was. You have never seen the present sun. No one has. No one can. I've been thinking about that fact for the better part of 2 years. And the thinking became a book, which is what thinking does when it refuses to stay inside your head. The book is called What the Light Carries, and it was published this week by David Bowles Books. And this episode is about what I learned while writing it. Not about the book itself. Not a sales pitch. About what the writing taught me that I did not know before I started. The book started with a grocery list. Not my grocery list, a hypothetical grocery list. A woman writes it at her kitchen table on a Tuesday morning. Eggs, bread, the good olive oil, not the one with the green label. She reads it 4 hours later under the fluorescent lights of a supermarket, standing in an aisle that smells of floor wax and refrigeration. And the version of herself who reads the list is not the version who wrote it. Cells have divided and died in the interval. A conversation with a neighbor has shifted her mood. An afternoon nap she did not plan to take has consolidated memories she did not know she was forming. The grocery list is a letter from a past stranger to a future stranger who happens to share her name. That idea seized me, not as a conceit, as a fact. Every act of writing is an act of temporal displacement. You write a sentence, and by the time someone reads it, even if that someone is you, a gap has opened between the world that existed when the words were chosen and the world that exists when the words are received. The gap may be 1 second. It may be 1,000 years. But the gap is always there, and the gap changes everything. I wanted to write a book about the gap, not a book about time travel, not a book about physics, though the physics matters. And I spent months getting the physics right. A book about what happens to meaning when it crosses time. What survives. What distorts. What arrives at the wrong address and is read by the wrong person. And still, somehow, means something. The book is 21 letters. I use the word letter loosely. A surgical dictation is a letter. A cockpit voice recorder transcript is a letter. A recipe card annotated by 3 generations of the same family is a letter. A homestead deed from 1884 is a letter. A radio signal broadcasting Chopin and a list of 47 names into a dead frequency is a letter. A mathematical theorem inscribed into the DNA of a bacterium is a letter. Each one crosses a gap. The first gap is 1 second. A surgeon dictating an operative report while the patient is still on the table. The last gap is 4.24 light years. That is the distance to Proxima Centauri, the nearest star, and it is also 0, depending on your frame of reference. Special relativity tells us that a photon traveling at the speed of light experiences no transit time. From the photon's perspective, emission and absorption are the same moment. The gap is a property of the receiver, not the sender. The message does not know it is late. Between those two extremes, 1 second and light years, I tried to cover every register of human communication I could reach: the clinical and the domestic, the bureaucratic and the intimate, the comic and the elegiac, the personal and the geological, the living and the dead. The structure was the first thing I knew: the widening gap, the temporal staircase, the idea that the book would expand letter by letter from the blink of an eye to the abyss of deep time. That structure gave me the plot, not a conventional plot, not characters and conflict and resolution. The gap is the plot. The widening is the movement. And the reader, I hoped, would feel the floor dropping away beneath them as the gaps got larger and the chances of the message arriving intact got smaller and smaller. I will tell you what surprised me about writing this book. I expected the speculative letters to be the hardest. The radio signal from 2274. The archive report from 2525. The nuclear waste marker panel trying to communicate across 10,000 years. Those are the letters that require world building, and world building is labor. They were not the hardest. The hardest letter was the one about the gas bill envelope. A man writes 11 words on the back of a gas bill envelope. Went to get the thing for the sink. Back by 6. He puts it on the kitchen counter under a coffee mug. He does not come back by 6. The note stays on the counter for 19 days. His wife does not move it. She does not move it on the first day. She does not move it on the 7th. She does not move it when her sister comes to stay and suggests cleaning up. She does not move it because the note is in the future tense. Back by 6. It points forward. And there is a version of time, a version that the wife inhabits for at least part of every day, in which the note is still operative, still pending, still a message from a man who is on his way to the hardware store. That letter was the hardest because it required me to write about the smallest possible gap. A gap of hours, a gap that was supposed to close and did not, and to make the reader understand that a gap that refuses to close is the same thing as a gap that is infinite. The 19 days that the note sits on the counter are not 19 days. They are a reclassification of the future tense. The note was written as a 1-hour letter. It became something else. I also did not expect to cry while writing the mole recipe. But that is a story for another episode. Every book, if it is doing its job, asks one question and then refuses to answer it simply. The question this book asks is, what survives the gap? Not what should survive, not what we hope survives. What actually survives when a message crosses time. When a surgeon dictates a report and the tape is overwritten the next day. When a first officer saves a plane and tells his wife the flight was fine. When a man writes, back by 6, and the 6 o'clock never arrives. When a mother writes advice to an unborn daughter and the advice is wrong. When a corporation writes a 5-year plan and the future does not cooperate. When a teacher seals a letter in a time capsule and dies 8 months before the capsule is opened. What survives is not the meaning the sender intended. That is the uncomfortable conclusion the book reaches, letter by letter, gap by gap. The meaning that arrives is always different from the meaning that was sent. The reader supplies the context, the interpretation, the grief, the recognition, the laughter. The sender provides the words, The gap provides the distortion. And the distortion is not a failure. The distortion is where the life of the correspondence actually happens. A recipe card that has been annotated by 3 women over 60 years does not carry the original recipe anymore. It carries the argument about chocolate. It carries the burned batch on Christmas Eve. It carries the silence of a mother who tasted her daughter's mole and said nothing because saying nothing was the highest compliment. The recipe survives, but the meaning of the recipe has been transformed by every hand that touched the card. That is what the light carries. Everything the sender gave it, and nothing the receiver needs. I want to close with the physics, because the physics is not decoration. The physics is the argument. A photon traveling at the speed of light experiences no time. This is not mysticism. This is special relativity. The Lorentz equations predict that as velocity approaches the speed of light, time dilation approaches infinity. From the photon's frame of reference, or rather from the limiting case's velocity approaches c, the moment of emission and the moment of absorption are the same moment. The photon does not experience transit. The photon does not wait. The photon is emitted by a star and absorbed by a telescope 4 years later, and the 4 years that elapsed for the astronomer did not elapse for the photon. Every letter in the book has been about the gap between emission and absorption, between writing and reading, between the world that sends the message and the world that receives it. And the title letter, the final letter, argues that from the message's perspective, there is no gap. The message does not know it is late. The message does not know the world has changed. The message arrives carrying exactly what it was given at the moment of composition, and it delivers it unchanged at the moment of reception. And the gap between those 2 moments is the receiver's problem, not the sender's. The reader is the gap. You are the gap. You are the future these words were sent to find. And the version of you who started listening to this episode is not the version who is hearing this sentence, because 20 minutes have passed, and in those 20 minutes you have been changed by what you heard, or you have not. And either way, the words are the same words they were when I recorded them, and I am not the same person who recorded them, because I have continued living past the moment of recording. And the version of me who is speaking to you right now no longer exists. The relay is continuous. The relay is what being alive is. The book is called What the Light Carries. It is available now from David Bowles Books at bowlesbooks.com and wherever books are sold. The ebook, the paperback, and a free PDF download for anyone who wants one. For the Human Meme Podcast, I'm David Bowles, wishing you a brighter evening and a lighter tomorrow. Be a human meme.